Gu Chongqing's expression was quite calm. As Gu Qing'er's master, no one knew better than him how strong his disciple was. Don't look at Gu Qing'er's current realm, which is only the early stage of the half-king, but in terms of combat power, ordinary Xuanwangs can't last more than a few rounds in front of her. Although Jianju's strength is strong, he is still a certain distance away from the real early stage of Xuanwang, in front of his disciple. It is not worth mentioning at all. But the geniuses who were watching the battle were different. Seeing Gu Qing'er step onto the stage, everyone watching the battle was stunned. Even Jianju on the stage was stunned. He was ready to step down. But when he saw Gu Qing'er step onto the stage, he immediately raised his eyebrows. "Who are you?" "Gu family. Gu Qing'er." Gu Qing'er spoke lightly, and when the voice fell, the breath also bloomed. However, the fluctuation of the early stage of the half-king seemed insignificant in front of Jianju's previous record of defeating Lin Yaoyu with overwhelming force, and Jianju shook his head. He had no intention of fighting against Gu Qing'er, who was only in the early stage of the half-king. He didn't know why Gu Qing'er had the courage to go on stage after witnessing him defeating Lin Yaoyu, and he was not interested in knowing. He didn't even have the desire to fight against a mere early stage of the half-king. Just then, Gu family. Gu Qing'er. I remember she was the one who defeated Chen Fangge in Yunlong Mountains. Hiss. Is it this little girl? Chen Fangge. That guy is very powerful. She was able to defeat him with one sword. Her fighting power is probably not just as simple as the early stage of the half-king. Many of the geniuses watching the battle raised their eyebrows slightly. The look in his eyes when he looked at Gu Qing'er was a little more volatile. Even the originally distraught geniuses in the Nine Princesses camp couldn't help but look at Gu Qing'er on the stage a few more times. But soon, they smiled bitterly and shook their heads. After all, Chen Fangge, let alone the entire Shenmeng dynasty, was only ranked in the top 10 among the young geniuses in the Three Princes camp, compared with Jianju, who even Lin Yaoyu defeated easily. He was not in the same league, and Jianju raised his eyebrows. No wonder you dare to challenge me on the stage. It turns out that you are a genius with some reputation. But Jianju looked at Gu Qing'er in front of him and sneered, just defeating Chen Fangge. You are not qualified to challenge me. After saying that, Jianju turned around and prepared to step down. Seeing Jianju's choice, the geniuses in the Nine Princesses camp couldn't help but feel relieved. Today, they have experienced the humiliation of Lin Yaoyu's defeat. If Gu Qing'er goes up and gets defeated again, it will only make them more embarrassed, although they didn't have any hope for Gu Qing'er. Losing one game or two games is obviously more humiliating than losing two games. Now, Jianju didn't make a move at all, so they were naturally a little relieved. Several female disciples hurriedly waved their hands, wanting Gu Qing'er to come down and stop making trouble. But, at this moment, want to go down? Sure, but you have to lie down. Gu Qing'er spoke softly, and while speaking, she had already drawn her sword and slashed out. Swoosh! The sword light was shocking, and it was like a cold wind sweeping from the Nine Netherworld, which could freeze a person's consciousness and spirit. What? Is she looking for death? Seeing that Gu Qing'er not only did not take this opportunity to get off the stage, but also took the initiative to attack Jinju, the monks who were watching the battle all stood up suddenly, looking at Gu Qing'er as if they had seen a ghost. Is she crazy? Only Jinju. When he saw the sword light that Gu Qing'er slashed out, there was a look of surprise in his eyes. This sword. It was more powerful than any of Lin Yaoyu's strikes just now. However, he also had his own confidence and pride. Although Gu Qing'er's sword was powerful, he was confident that he could deal with it. Okay, since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Jianju let out a long roar, turned his body on the battlefield, avoided the strike that Gu Qing'er slashed out, and then waved his hand suddenly. Swoosh! Behind him, spiritual light soared into the sky, and two dazzling red spiritual swords flew into his hands. As his spiritual power circulated, he slashed out a cross of burning sword light, 10 red flame swords. It seems that my ninth brother is really angry. This little girl is going to be in trouble. Below the stage, watching Jianju slash out this cross of sword light, Jensan and Jenwu, below the stage, also had their eyes brighten, and looked at Gu Qing'er with a bit of pity in their eyes. The cross of sword light, burning with blazing wherever the spiritual flame passed, the space was faintly burned by the red flame, and it was about to burn out a hole. The terrifying power made the geniuses watching the battle below hold their breath involuntarily, and there was a strong fear in their eyes. Some geniuses close to the battle stage even retreated unconsciously, fearing that they would be too close and affected by the sword light. And the geniuses on the side of the third prince looked at Gu Qing'er with eyes full of gloating. It was as if they had seen the scene where Gu Qing'er was severely injured by the sword light, defeated miserably, and regretted it. However, is this your ability? On the battle stage, Gu Qing'er's tone was full of disappointment. He raised his hand slightly and slashed it with a sword. With just one sword, he slashed the cross-sword light wrapped in the blazing spiritual flame into pieces. What? Even Jianju couldn't help but change color at this moment, and couldn't help but exclaim, looking at Gu Qing'er with astonishment in his eyes. That red flame sword, among his many methods, is enough to rank in the top 3 in terms of killing power. But such a killing technique was actually destroyed by Gu Qing'er so easily. How is it possible? Jianju roared in his heart, calming himself down. The people in the audience had not even reacted to the shock of Gu Qing'er breaking Jianju's sword, and Jianju's second attack had already arrived. Another mighty sword light was swaying. But, just like the previous cross sword light, before it got close to Gu Qinger. It was easily blocked by Gu Qinger and completely resolved. One attack after another was cut out from Jianju's hand, but in front of Gu Qinger. These methods were like children's games. She didn't use much strength at all, just broke them all and resolved them all. In the end, even the slowest people could see the situation on the battlefield. Everyone looked at Gu Qinger with a look of astonishment. What's the matter with this Gu Qinger of the Gu family? She's suppressing Jianju, who defeated Lin Yaoye. Even Lin Yaoye was stunned. She looked at the Gu family's team involuntarily, and her heart was filled with shock. She was a real prodigy who had fought with Jianju. No one knew how strong Jianju was better than her. But now, her powerful enemy was suppressed by Gu Qinger so easily. Such a contrast made Lin Yaoye somewhat difficult to accept. The opponent who she had tried her best, but could not defeat, was so vulnerable in front of this Gu family prodigy. At this time, Jianju's strength had already surpassed that of the time when he fought against her. Obviously, Jianju did not use his full strength when fighting against her at that time. Now is his true strength. But even so, he was still ruthlessly crushed by Gu Qinger. Gu Qinger didn't care about the thoughts of the people under the ring. Her heart was full of disappointment at the moment. Looking at Jianju, who was already showing signs of fatigue, Gu Qinger shook her head. "You are so arrogant. I thought you were so strong. Now it seems that you are just like this. Or do you have hidden strength that you haven't shown yet?" Gu Qinger said. At the end of her tone, there was even a little more expectation. But this expectation made Jianju more angry than the straightforward humiliation and ridicule. Hidden strength. What the hell? This is all his strength. How can he have any spare strength? Ah! Jianju roared and swung his sword forward, attacking Gu Qinger. At this time, how could he still look so high and proud as before? The desperate fighting attitude made everyone in the audience excited. They looked at Jianju with more curiosity, thinking that Jianju could show stronger skills. However, bang! Looking at Jianju, who was hit by Gu Qinger's sword and flew out of the ring. Whether it was the 9 princesses' side, the 3 princes' side, or even those neutral and wavering Tianjiao children and clan masters, all the spectators swallowed their saliva involuntarily at this moment, and their eyes returned from Jianju to Gu Qinger on the ring, with indescribable shock in their eyes. Jianju lost. The Tianjiaos on the 9 princesses' side were originally ready to leave. It was not until Jianju was knocked off the ring that they stopped and looked at Jianju, who fell into the crowd like garbage. There was still a strong shock in their eyes, and they felt that this scene was like a dream, but they can't be blamed. After all, even the elders in their clan were equally shocked at this moment. This Gu family actually has such a genius. Such a genius has been hiding his identity and has never been publicized. The Gu family is really good at hiding. Incredible. It's really incredible. All the old masters were full of emotion, and the geniuses on the side of the 3rd prince were like riding a roller coaster at this moment, reaching the peak in an instant, and falling to the bottom in an instant. At this moment, in the crowd, Jianwu and Jiansun, looking at the shocking task, couldn't help laughing. When they looked at Gu Qinger, there was no more awe in their eyes, only endless contempt. It was as if they were not geniuses of the same generation as Gu Qinger and others, but were already qualified to look down on and instruct them. This Gu Qinger is already pretty good among the many young people in the Shenmeng dynasty. Brother is right. It is rare for a young man to have such a high level of swordsmanship. If not, how could she defeat Xiaoju so easily? They spoke one after another. In their words, they could not hide their contempt for Gu Qinger. The monks watching the battle were stunned. They looked at Jianwu and Jiansun with a hint of surprise. It was as if they were looking at a fool. But when they heard the last sentence of the 2 men, calling Jianzhou Xiaozhou, the few geniuses who were looking at him like a fool couldn't help but shudder, and their voices trembled unconsciously. My goodness, these 2, can't they be the elder brothers of Jianzhu? What? Brother Jianzhu's elder brothers. The proud children in the 3rd prince's camp were all immersed in frustration. After hearing this sigh, they all regained their spirits and looked at Jiansun and Jianwu as if they were drowning people who grabbed a life-saving straw. Feeling the awe and shock of the surrounding, the attitudes of Jiansun and Jianwu became more and more arrogant. With a slight smile, Jiansun spoke first and looked at Gu Qinger on the stage. There was a brilliance in his eyes. It's not easy to come out, Xiaowu. This Gu Qinger, don't fight with me anymore. 3rd brother, I can give you other things, but this one, I can't. Jianwu spoke slowly, in front of so many people. The 2 started arguing directly. It seems that Gu Qinger is used as a stepping stone. Everyone around was stunned. But just when they were arguing, Gu Qinger's cold voice came from the arena. Don't argue. Both of you, come on together. Hearing this, Jiansun and Jianwu were stunned, and then they couldn't help laughing. It seems that Xiaoju's defeat really makes us underestimate it. In this case, Xiaowu, Gu Qinger will be handed over to you. Don't worry. Brother San. Jianwu grinned and bowed slightly. With a flash of his figure, he replaced Jianju's position and came directly to the arena. Little sister, you can defeat Xiaoju, which shows that you are really capable. It's just that you overestimate your own weight. Defeating Xiaoju is nothing. Xiaoju's strength is the weakest among the 3 of us. And he is basically... Jianwu's words have not been finished. He was interrupted by Gu Qinger. The strength of the 3rd person is not worth mentioning at all. I will see the real strength next. That's what you want to say, right? Gu Qinger raised her eyebrows slightly. There was a cold light in the girl's eyes at this moment. which made Jianwu's heart jump for no reason. But this was not the end of Gu Qing'er's words. Under the gaze of countless Tianjiao children and even the old generation of strong men around the ring, the girl raised her hand slightly, stretched out 2 jade fingers, and shook them in front of Jianwu. Coincidentally, my strength can only rank 3rd in the younger generation of my Gu family. There are 2 people above me. But Gu Qinger paused, looked at Jianwu, then looked at Jiansan, and smiled coldly. You are not qualified to see the strength of those 2, because you can't even pass this level of mine. Hearing Gu Qinger's words, the cultivators present all changed color slightly, and their eyes were full of surprise and doubt when they looked at Gu Qinger. Many of them were quite clear about the situation of the Gu family, let alone the past. Even with the entry of Patriarch Kangming into the imperial realm, the Gu family still could not rank among the names in the Shenming dynasty, and at best they could only be ranked among the first-class families. For such a family, being able to produce a Gu Qinger was already a great honor. There are 2 more evil than Gu Qinger. How is it possible? Under the stage, the Gu family's group of geniuses were also the focus of the audience at this moment. A genius who had a close relationship with the Gu family and was also under the command of the 9th princess could not help but get close to the Gu Nishang, the leader of the Gu family geniuses, and said in disbelief, Nishang, is what your Gu family's Miss Qinger said true? No wonder they were so shocked. Gu Qinger's victory over Jianju really had a huge impact on them. Now suddenly, 2 Gu family members who are stronger than Gu Qinger have appeared, who can remain calm. Looking at the unbelievable look of her friend next to her, Gu Nishang thought of the scene of Yunqi's brother and sister taking action when she was practicing in the ancestral land during the past period of time. She nodded slightly and said from the bottom of her heart, Qinger. She is really not exaggerating. Gu Nishang's affirmative answer shocked the juniors on the side of Princess Ju and made it difficult for them to calm down. But Jianwu on the stage and Jiansan under the stage just sneered. Their eyes were full of ridicule. There are 2 more geniuses who are stronger than you. Interesting. Really interesting. Jianzhou, Jianwang, Jiansan. The 3 of them are not unknown people, but one of the most outstanding young people of this generation of the Tantai family. The Tantai family seems to be indifferent to worldly affairs, but in fact, they are particularly familiar with the situation of various forces in the Shenming dynasty. The Gu family is naturally in this line. The former Gu family, a direct lineage passed down, is certainly worthy of attention, but the bloodline of the Gu family can only produce 1 Gu Qinger. There are 2 stronger ones. Only ghosts will believe it. Moreover, Gu Qinger's arrogant words also made Jianwu more upset. It has always been their Tantai family that is arrogant and domineering. When will it be their turn to be suppressed by others? What you said is empty talk. I don't know whether it is true or false, but you said that I can't see the remaining 2 geniuses of your Gu family. I'm afraid that the remaining 2 geniuses of your Gu family combined are not enough for me to suppress alone. Jianwu sneered and took a step forward while speaking. So, boom! Around the ring, under the shocked gazes of the spectators, Jianwu was emitting an extremely intense pressure from the King Realm. King Realm expert. Such a young King Realm expert. The whole audience was speechless, until Jianwu slowly raised his head and pulled out the red spirit sword from his waist. Everyone woke up from their dream and looked at Jianwu with awe that could not be hidden. In the 9 princesses camp, the Tianjiaos, who were originally excited because Gu Qinger entered the ring and defeated Jianju, their hearts that had originally calmed down, instantly fell back to the bottom. As for the neutral Tianjiaos, they involuntarily cast their eyes on Jiansan under the ring. Jianwu was already a King Realm expert. Then how strong would Jiansan, who had not yet appeared, be? Perfection of the early stage of Xuanwang, or the middle stage of Xuanwang. On the stage, the pressure of Jianwu Wang Realm, the unbridled expansion and agitation, made everyone present tremble in their hearts and even speechless. They no longer had any expectations for the outcome of this battle. It was not that they did not believe in Gu Qinger's strength, but the gap in strength between Wang Realm and Half Wang Realm was too big. Not to mention, Gu Qinger was only in the early stage of Half Wang Realm. Even though her combat power was far beyond that of an ordinary Half Wang Realm, she was still not worth mentioning in front of a real Wang Realm. What do you think? Do you still think that I can't even get past you? Feeling the awe-inspiring eyes around him, Jianwu's eyes were smug and mocking. As he spoke, his figure flashed, and the red spirit sword in his hand slashed out a flaming swordlight, which fell towards Gu Qinger's head. The swordlight was like fire, burning fiercely, even more ferocious and dangerous than the cross-shaped flames slashed by Jianju, making everyone watching the battle hold their breath. The Tianjiao, on the side of Princess Ju, unconsciously clenched his fists, hoping that Gu Qinger could avoid this sword, but to their surprise, Gu Qinger not only did not dodge, but smiled slightly when she saw the swordlight coming from Jianju, and also drew her sword and took a step forward, forward. Clang! The sound of the sword sounded like thunder, resounding through the clouds. Under the astonished gaze of the crowd, Gu Qinger slashed out 3 swordlights like lightning, like overlapping waves. When the last swordlight fell, everyone felt that what fell on the ring was no longer a swordlight, but a boundless tsunami that was more than 100 feet high and could destroy all obstacles. Damn it! How could this happen? Jianwu's eyes no longer had the sarcasm and complacency of the earlier time. When the first swordlight slashed by Gu Qinger fell, it was replaced by panic. because the first sword light had already swallowed up the red spiritual flame he slashed. Then, the second and third sword lights followed closely. Jianwen only had time to scream before he was hit hard by the two sword lights. He flew backwards thousands of feet, even more miserably than Jianju, and fell directly into the crowd, fainting on the spot. Plop! Jianwu's body fell heavily to the ground. The spectators were all stunned and couldn't say a word. Under the ring, Jiansan, who had luckily not fought, looked like he had seen a ghost. Looking at Gu Qinger on the ring, he wondered if he hadn't woken up today and got up too fast, so he saw the illusion of the battle. 3 swords will knock my fifth brother out of the ring. Jiansan's heart was beating fiercely, and there was an uncontrollable fear rising up, making his body tremble uncontrollably. Although Jiansan's strength is stronger than Jianwu's, but he is far from being as strong as those spectators think. At best, he is only in the early stage of Xuanwang, and his strength is limited. And his fifth brother was defeated so easily? How long can he last if he goes up? 5 swords, 7 swords. What's the point? Just when Jiansan was panicking, in the 9 princesses' camp, the younger generation of the Gu family, Yunxi and his brother, were extremely depressed. Sister Qinger is too much. Can't you deliberately lose and let us go up and play? Listening to the words of the two little guy, the younger generation of the Gu family, next to them, were all a little amused. But when they looked at Gu Qinger, they were all full of awe and envy. They knew Gu Qinger's strength. But before Gu Qinger really became Gu Changqing's apprentice and followed Gu Changqing to practice, her strength was only at the level of half-king perfection. But what about now? Less than 2 months, ordinary Xuanwangs could not resist the power of her 3 swords in front of her. Among the prodigies of the Gu family, Gu Xinmeng, who stood not far behind Gu Nisheng, had a trace of regret in her eyes besides envy. She had also made rapid progress in the past period of time. She was also proud of this, and had faintly restored her previous arrogant attitude. But at this moment, looking at Gu Qinger, who knocked Jianwu away with 3 swords on the ring, her little pride that had just risen was completely faded. Compared with Gu Qinger's progress, what was her achievement? Although she could get the guidance of His Highness Changqing, she was not a disciple after all. When did the opportunity come to her? And she just missed it. No matter how much she regretted it now, it was too late. Gu Qinger didn't care about the thoughts of the people under the ring. After defeating Jianwu, her eyes were looking directly at Jiansan, who was shocked and terrified. She raised her spirit sword slightly, pointed the tip of the sword and said calmly, "Aren't you good at pretending? Come on stage and fight with me, to avenge your 2 brothers?" Listening to Gu Qinger's words, Jinsan's face was extremely ugly, changing from pale to blue, and his teeth were about to break. But he didn't dare to step onto the stage, just stood under the stage, not dared to step onto the stage. After all, if he really stepped onto the stage, his fate would not be better than Jianwu, and he might even be injured and follow the footsteps of Jianwu and Jianju. And watching Jiansan standing there and refusing to step onto the stage, Gu Qinger couldn't help but sneer, and his eyes turned to the rest of the geniuses on the side of the 3rd prince. Feeling Gu Qinger's gaze turning to him, those arrogant sons of the Tianjiao held their breath at this moment, not daring to breathe, fearing that they would be named and challenged by Gu Qinger. A bunch of trash. Looking at their appearance, Gu Qinger shook her head slightly, disappointed, and spoke in a cold voice, then turned around and returned to the team of Gu's Tianjiao under the awe-inspiring gaze of the spectators. Time flies. 3 days later, in Kangming King City, in the ancestral land of the Gu family, the decisive battle in the imperial city ended with an outcome beyond everyone's expectations. The Tianjiao sons of the 3rd prince's side, who originally thought they had a sure win, and even the old strongmen in their clan, were a little dazed. Until the Gu family team left the imperial city and set off for the return voyage, they had not recovered from the shock. In contrast to the 3rd prince's side, it was the young Tianjiao in the 9 princesses' camp. They originally thought that this battle was a sure loss, but they never expected that Gu Qinger from the Gu family would turn the tide. For a time, the Gu family's geniuses became the uncrowned kings and de facto leaders of the younger generation in the 9 princesses' camp, and their prestige was unparalleled. Gu Qinger became the well-deserved first leader of the younger generation of the Shenming dynasty. However, the most concerned person in the Kangming Gu family at this moment was not Gu Qinger, who became famous in the entire dynasty with 1 battle, but the great elder of the clan, His Highness Changqing. This, His Highness, does he really not need to prepare anything? Spirit pills, spirit stones, nothing. Gu Wanli and other elders of the Gu family were all a little surprised. After they received the news that Gu Changqing was going to retreat to the imperial realm, they rushed back to the ancestral land without stopping. Originally, they were going to mobilize the clan's treasures to prepare food for Gu Changqing to break through the imperial realm, but unexpectedly, Gu Changqing did not need to prepare anything, and entered the depths of the ancestral land and began to retreat. All the senior members of the Gu family could not help but look at Patriarch Kangming, but Patriarch Kangming also looked confused and doubted his life. When he was trying to break through the imperial realm, he had been preparing for more than 10 years. He also spent almost half of the Gu family's treasures before he succeeded in breaking through the imperial realm. Where is there someone like Gu Changqing? After returning, he only stayed for half a day, and then said that he was ready, and then he started to break through the imperial realm. Uncle Wanli, Grandpa Kangming? You don't have to worry about Daddy. Since Daddy has started to break through the Imperial realm, it means that he has absolute confidence and there is nothing to worry about. Compared to the worries of the senior members of the Gu family, Yungxi and his sister, these two little guys are quite calm. Gu Yungxi couldn't help but speak to comfort these senior members of the Gu family. Listening to the little girl's words, Gu Wanli, Kangming, and other old Gu family masters were all a little amused. Although Gu Yunqi is gifted, she is old, how could this child imagine the danger of breaking through the Imperial realm? No matter how monstrous a genius is, when he tries to reach the realm of the Emperor, he will face great tests. Sometimes he will even be locked up for several years. When the senior members of the Gu family were worried, buzz. There was a spiritual light between heaven and earth. A mighty pressure that could not be described in words spread from the depths of the ancestral land and swept across the entire ancestral space. No, not just the ancestral space. Even the Kangming King City outside the ancestral land. Even the Kangming King City, a radius of 100,000 miles. At this moment, they were all enveloped by the pressure released by the imperial spiritual light that rose from the deepest part of the Gu family's ancestral land, like a big dragon. Countless cultivators within 100,000 miles around Kangming King City were startled and looked towards the direction of Kangming King City, with shock and astonishment in their eyes. Is this the pressure of the Imperial realm? Another person from the Kangming Gu family has broken into the realm of the Imperial Way, inside the Kangming ancestral land. Compared to the shock of outsiders, the surprise in the hearts of the Kangming Gu family seniors is even more fierce than those outsiders. Those cultivators outside only know that the Gu family is now different from the past, but they don't know the details of the Gu family. But Gu Wanli and the others know clearly, from the time when his own Chongqing palace was in seclusion and said that he would break into the Imperial realm, to the moment when the Imperial realm aura rose, the pressure of the Imperial Way covered an area of 100,000 miles. How long did the whole process last? Less than half a day. In less than half a day, he achieved the realm of the Imperial Way. Gu Wanli was a little dazed and felt that his worldview had been greatly impacted, and he couldn't calm down at all. However, he couldn't be blamed. Even the Kangming ancestor looked like he was hit hard at this moment. No, just then, Ancestor Kangming suddenly reacted. Generally, it is rare for the Emperor to achieve 1,000 miles of pressure. 100,000 miles of pressure. What realm has His Highness Chongqing achieved? Ancestor Kangming's voice was trembling at the end, and his doubts were soon answered. Swish. Deep in the ancestral land, Gu Chongqing's figure swept into the sky, directly reaching the highest point of the Emperor's spiritual light, and sat cross-legged. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered by the Emperor's spiritual light was swallowed and refined by him as he breathed in and out, quickly filling his dantian that became empty after breaking through the realm. And as the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surged, the fluctuation of the qi emanating from Gu Chongqing's body also began to soar rapidly. The early stage of Xuanhuang, the middle stage of Xuanhuang, the late stage of Xuanhuang, the perfect Xuanhuang, until boom! Under the horrified gazes of the Gu family's top leaders, Gu Chongqing's eyes, which had been half closed, suddenly opened. And there was a tangible aura in his eyes, like the sharpest sword. At the moment of opening his eyes, the unique pressure of the Emperor Realm Strongman roared and stirred in all directions, almost overturning the entire ancestral space of the Kangming Gu family. And the Kangming Patriarch and other senior members of the Gu family finally knew the achievements of Gu Chongqing after this breakthrough. As soon as he entered the Emperor Realm, he directly impacted the Emperor Realm. The Kangming Patriarch took a deep breath and looked at Gu Chongqing on the sea of clouds. His eyes were filled with unstoppable shock and surprise. And just when the Kangming Patriarch was surprised and sighed, boom! In his body, when he broke into the Emperor Realm, some of the blood of the Gu family's holy clan had been revived. At this moment, it was like a spark that fell into the kerosene. Let his Gu family's holy blood boil and burn in an instant. And under the blessing of this holy blood, the aura of the Kangming Patriarch began to rise steadily. And starting from the realm of Kangming Patriarch, Gu Wanli, Gu Hong, Gu Ji, Gu Ying, the aura of each Gu family strongman began to grow by leaps and bounds. Such a transformation was 100 times stronger than the blood recovery and realm growth brought by Kangming Patriarch when he broke into the Emperor Realm. 1,000 times. It was just a breath. The realm of Kangming Patriarch soared from the early stage of Xuanhuang to the perfection of Xuanhuang. And Gu Wanli, the head of the Gu family, a strong man in the God King realm, also had a soaring aura. It soared directly to the level of the perfection of the God King. The other few Kangming Gu family God King elders also broke into the late stage of the God King one after another. And those elders in the Heavenly King and Xuan King realm also made breakthroughs, and basically jumped into the level of perfection in their respective realm. And the achievements of those talented young people of the Gu family are even more exaggerated. Gu Nishang, Gu Qingcheng, Gu Xinmeng, and others, with the support brought by the awakening of blood, have made rapid progress in their realms and have all broken into the Xuanwang realm. For example, Gu Qinger has soared all the way and directly broken into the Xuanwang perfections, and is only one step away from entering the Tianwang realm. However, the more powerful ones are the Yunxi siblings. This pair of siblings, one with a gold 9th grade fate and the other with an orange 3rd grade fate, are Gu Changqing's direct children and are the closest to Gu Changqing's bloodline. As Gu Changqing entered the Emperor realm, the blood of the Saint clan was revived the most. The realms of the two little guys soared all the way. Gu Qingchen directly broke through to the early stage of the Tianwang, and Gu Yunqi was even more terrifying. The realm soared all the way and directly broke through to the Tianwang perfection. And then just stopped. But it made the younger generations of the Gu family who were immersed in their own soaring strength come back to their senses from the surprise. The original sense of complacency and pride in my heart, in contrast to Gu Yunqi and Gu Qingchen, they all disappeared silently, without any trace of complacency. Gu Wanli and other senior members of the Gu family were very excited when they saw the growth of the younger generation and felt the surge in their own strength. During this period, with the arrival of Gu Changqing, the prestige and sphere of influence of the Kangming Gu family can be said to have grown rapidly. As a result, the speed of the expansion of the Gu family's power has been so fast that the strength of the senior members of the Gu family can't keep up. Under normal circumstances, a Tianwang elder can only sit in a territory of 1,000 miles. But if the Tianwang of the Gu family is sent abroad, basically every one of them has to sit in a territory of 3,000 to 5,000 miles. They are too busy to handle it. But after today, this problem is solved, and the young geniuses such as Gu Nishang can also participate more in the affairs of the clan, which further relieves the pressure of Kangming Gu clan. And all this is attributed to, we congratulate His Highness Changqing for achieving the realm of the Emperor, under the leadership of Kangming Patriarch, Gu Wanli, and other senior members of the Gu family. All the members of the Gu family faced Gu Changqing and bowed down. Yunxi and Qingchen also opened their little hands, imitated the elders and brothers around them, bowed to their father, and followed the word, "We congratulate His Highness Daddy for achieving the realm of the Emperor." Hearing the two little guys' inappropriate addresses, Gu Changqing couldn't help but twitch his eyes, smiled helplessly, waved his hand, and a spiritual light fell, which helped Gu Wanli and others up. No need to be polite, but don't slack off in your practice. Understand. Yes, please rest assured, Your Highness, we will not let you down. As the clan leader, Gu Wanli was the first to pat his chest and promise, and couldn't help laughing as he said, "Before, the elders of my Gu family who were stationed outside complained bitterly, saying every day that they were stationed outside and had no confidence, worrying that they would not be able to handle any changes in time. From now on, they can rest assured." Gu Changqing also smiled slightly. He was looking forward to it. He had just broken through the Emperor realm, but he had revived the Saint clan's bloodline so much. What would it be like when he broke through the Venerable realm? Just then, buzz! The teleportation vortex at the entrance of the ancestral space suddenly lit up. And then a figure of a heavenly king elder of the Gu family who was sitting outside came out of it and delivered an astonishing news. Urgent report from the Imperial City Emperor Shenmeng. Emperor Mengshan has passed away 3 days ago. The 3rd prince and the 9th princess have led their teams to the Imperial City. Oh. Is this day finally here? Hearing this news, Gu Wanli and Patriarch Kangming were suddenly refreshed, and Gu Changqing narrowed his eyes slightly. The situation of the Shenmeng dynasty can still be balanced at the moment, mainly because the old emperor of the Shenmeng dynasty is still alive, now that Emperor Mengshan has fallen. It means that the day of the decisive battle between the 3 princes and the 9 princesses is coming soon. It's a coincidence that I came at such a good time. Gu Changqing smiled slightly. In the past, when he had not entered the Emperor realm, he could easily suppress the giants of the Emperor. Once the Juxian sword formation came out, he could be said to be invincible under the Saint Emperor. And now, Gu Changqing has truly entered the Emperor realm, and has directly impacted the Emperor realm without using the Juxian sword formation. He can easily kill ordinary Saint Emperor giants. And what if he uses the Juxian sword formation? Even if it is a venerable, I can easily suppress it. Gu Changqing whispered to himself, and there was a rare fighting spirit in his eyes. After breaking into the Emperor realm, he also had some ideas of looking for an opponent to have a good fight. Gu Wanli, Gu Changming, listen to my order. Lead the elite of our Gu family and divide them into 2 teams immediately. One team will stay in Kangming Royal City, and the other team will set off with me immediately to Shenmeng Imperial City to support the 9th princess and suppress the rebellious 3rd prince. Repay the 3rd prince for his great kindness to our Gu family in the past. Gu Changqing spoke softly. The words he said suddenly lifted the spirits of the Gu family members present. Immediately, Gu Wanli and Kangming Patriarch began to act. In the evening of that day, they selected all the people and followed Gu Changqing to board the flying boat to the Imperial City. Soon they caught up with the team that was also heading to the Imperial City. Under the warm welcome of the 9th princess, they joined the 9th princess's fleet and headed straight for the Imperial City. When they arrived, the 3rd prince's large group of people also arrived at the same time on the other side. The fleets on both sides were both mighty, with more than 100 spirit boats each, thousands of king-level warriors, and many emperor-level masters, mighty and powerful, with overwhelming power. The entire Shenming imperial city was shrouded in endless dark clouds. The tense atmosphere made the cultivators in the imperial city tremble in their hearts, not daring to make any rash moves, lest they bring themselves unwarranted disaster. And in this silence, boom, deep in the imperial city, in the bedroom of Emperor Meng, a ray of divine light swept across the sky, accompanied by the pressure that only the giants of the divine emperor realm could have, which shocked the cultivators in the imperial city. Even the arrogant third prince frowned after noticing the pressure. Third prince. His Majesty personally sent a message that he would pass the throne to the ninth prince, and he entrusted me with this jade talisman as a proof in front of this jade talisman. If you insist on entering the imperial city, it would be against the will of the old god emperor, and it would be a rebellion. As the pressure rose, an old man in a purple robe, with angry hair and beard, like an angry lion, rose into the clouds. In his hand, a golden jade seal with the ancient seal character Dream engraved on it suddenly flashed. Without any sign of spiritual power, it flew in front of the ninth princess, immediately causing many cultivators in the imperial city to exclaim, This jade seal with the word Dream is the life spirit of the dream god emperor. Although it is not his most important combat spirit weapon, it is his token. In the imperial dynasty, seeing it has always meant seeing the god emperor himself. At this moment, the jade seal flew to the ninth princess by itself, and the purple-robed emperor, Thunder Emperor, who was the best friend of the Emperor Mengshen in his life, and rescued the Emperor Mengshen from the battlefield and extended his life for 30 years, proved it. It was clear to which prince the Emperor Mengshen would pass the throne. This is really rebellion. What a big name. To everyone's surprise, the third prince's expression was extremely calm, except for a slight frown when he saw the Thunder Emperor stand up and support the ninth princess at the beginning. His expression was extremely calm afterwards. And after the Thunder God Emperor finished speaking, he sneered directly. Uncle Lei sure came up and put such a big title on my head. I can't accept it. I rebel? Father is old and confused. I think, Uncle Li Shi, you are also old and confused. Ninth sister has only practiced for more than 20 years, and her cultivation has barely broken into the king realm. With such achievements, is she worthy of ruling my Shenmeng dynasty? Looking at my father's descendants, only I who have entered the emperor realm have this qualification. As he said, the third prince opened his hand and pointed behind him. His tone was extremely arrogant. Look at the people who support me. Who is the emperor of Shenmeng? Shouldn't it be clear at a glance? Clear at a glance. Third brother, you said so much, but you still can't get rid of the fact that you want to go against the will of the father and rebel. The ninth princess bit her silver teeth and said coldly, Rebellion. Ninth sister, we are a cultivation dynasty, not a mortal country. Father's opinion is important, but it is not the most important. The whole dynasty's Taoism. Which side is the real master of the dynasty? The third prince said. His eyes fell on the leaders of various forces behind the ninth princess, with an ambiguous and cold smile. Ninth sister, take a good look behind you, and when you see clearly, tell me who is rebelling between you and me. How about it? Everyone. What are you waiting for? Hearing the words of the third prince, the ninth princess's heart suddenly jumped, and she turned around suddenly. But she just happened to see that an ancestor of the royal family slowly stood up and bowed slightly to the ninth princess. Your Highness, I'm sorry. After saying that, he did not hesitate, and directly led the elite of his family behind him, driving his own family's spirit boat, and sailed into the camp of the third prince, led by this aristocratic ancestor behind the ninth princess. The leaders of the aristocratic families and sects all brought their elites, drove the spirit boats, and sailed behind the third prince. In the end, even the Yuntian sect, which was like a pillar of jade supporting the sky, on the ninth princess's side, directly defected. Under the leadership of the Yuntian ancestor, they almost couldn't wait to join the third prince's camp. For a while, behind the ninth princess, the spirit boats that were still holding on were directly destroyed by nearly 70%. This brother's ancestors. Why is this so? The ninth princess has always treated you well. The leaders of the forces under the ninth princess couldn't help but speak. Although the ninth princess didn't speak, there was a lot of confusion and grief in her eyes that was hard to hide. Your Highness, please don't blame us. We are just following orders. With a situation like this, who can do anything? The last spiritual boat to leave was Ye Yun from Yuntian sect. He lowered his head, not daring to look at the ninth princess. He could only bow his hands in guilt as an apology, and then he commanded his subordinates, honestly, followed the ancestor, and sailed into the third prince's camp. It took only an instant stick of time. The power comparison of the two sides, which were originally evenly matched, has undergone a drastic change. The ninth princess's side, even with the Gu family who entered temporarily, only had a few hundred people, and the cultivators behind the third prince, the powerful masters of the king realm and the emperor realm. Together, there is already a magnificent momentum of thousands of people. Ninth sister, do you still think you can compete with me now? The third prince looked at the ninth princess with a playful look and a sarcastic tone. He looked down at the ninth princess below and sneered. There was a sense of satisfaction in his eyes, as if he was sure of victory. However, he did have the confidence. Behind the ninth princess, except for a few aristocratic families such as the Lin family and the Gu family, they were considered diehards. The reason why the other sects and families did not betray was not because they were loyal, but because the third prince looked down on them and was too lazy to even win them over if he used some tricks. At this moment, whether the cultivators standing behind the ninth princess could gather 100 people was still a question mark. Third brother, ninth sister, today, I have seen your tricks. Now that things have come to this, let's fight. The ninth princess took a deep breath. The grief and anger in her eyes disappeared, and what replaced it was a determination. The determination to fight to the death. The same was true for the cultivators behind her. At this point, the other party would probably not accept mercy, so it was better to fight to the death, which would also save their reputation. But seeing their determination, the third prince smiled. What he wanted to see was the complete collapse of the ninth princess and others, not the determination to fight to the death. Immediately, the third prince smiled playfully, raised his hand slightly, and said, "Why is ninth sister in such a hurry to fight? Aren't you curious why the Yuntian sect betrayed you?" The ninth princess, and even the last loyal followers under her, were all startled and looked up. The third prince smiled slightly, raised his hand, and let Jianju behind him out. Do you know what the real name of this friend, Jianju, is? Real name. Seeing Jianju appear, the ninth princess and others were all startled. They were not unfamiliar with Jianju's identity, especially the loyal followers of the Lin family, who were even more impressed by Jianju. Lin Yaoyue, the daughter of the Lin family and the first genius of the dynasty, was defeated miserably by this man. However, he was later defeated by a genius of the Gu family. With the cold temper of the third prince, he could still tolerate him and his brothers to stay in the camp and treat them so kindly. Confused, puzzled, I will tell you mercifully. The third prince looked at the puzzled expressions of the crowd and sneered. This friend Jianju, his real name is called Dantaiju, Dantaiju Dantai family. Hearing this name, not to mention the cultivators on the side of the ninth princess, even the Thunder God Emperor suddenly changed color and exclaimed, "Dantai family, standing on your side. How is it possible? Dantai family." This name is not unfamiliar to everyone present. Even the Shenming imperial family is not as good as this family. After all, the Shenming imperial family, including the deceased Emperor Meng, only has 3 emperors, and the Tantai family has 7 emperors. And the ancestor of the Tantai family, according to legend, has reached the limit of the Emperor realm and may enter the Holy Emperor Heaven Gate at any time. Such a family is a great challenge for all the families and sects in the Shenming dynasty. That is the existence of the uncrowned king. The reason why no one thought of them was because the Tantai family had been secluded for many years and never asked about the disputes in this territory. Even when the Shenming dynasty was established in the past, the Tantai family only sent a few people to meet with the Emperor Mengshen, and then they never appeared again. But now, the novel was taken from the Rollies website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. They actually jumped out again and supported the third prince, the people of the ninth princess, and even the imperial monks in the imperial city were dumbfounded. But after coming to their senses, these imperial monks looked at the ninth princess's side with pity in their eyes. The outcome of this battle has already been determined. Yes, with the support of the Tantai family for the third prince, it is reasonable for the Yuntian sect to betray. Who said it wasn't? The Tantai family supports the third prince, so even if the Yuntian sect doesn't betray, what can they do? They will all die. It's just that more people will die. All the monks in the imperial city shook their heads, ready to welcome the third prince to the throne. The morale of the ninth princess's side also completely fell to the bottom. Listening to the discussions of the monks in the imperial city below, the ninth princess couldn't help but smile miserably, looking back at the loyal monks under her command with an apologetic look, and then she bowed slightly, with a calm after despair. Third brother is indeed extraordinary. It's me who lost. I only asked third brother. Don't implicate my subordinates. Looking at the desperate expression of the ninth princess, then he looked at the panicked and frightened looks of the Lin family and other cultivators behind her. The joy in the heart of the third prince was infinitely expanding. When he heard the ninth princess bowing and admitting defeat, his eyes were full of pleasure. He waved his hand and smiled, looking like a winner. Don't worry, ninth sister, since you admit defeat, how can this prince? No, I really kill you all. But, the third prince said. His eyes passed directly over the ninth princess and her group, and fell on the spiritual boat led by Gu Changqing next to the ninth princess and her group. Looking at the people of the Gu family, his eyes were full of ferocious murderous intent. Kangming family, hehe. Some time ago, your Kangming family was quite outstanding. You have slapped me in the face more than once. Is it fun? Gu Changqing. Is that the name? The third prince stared at Gu Changqing, who stood tall on the spirit boat, with his white shirt flying, and looked like a banished immortal. A hint of jealousy flashed in his eyes, but it turned into a joke in an instant, like a cat playing with the mouse. And he spoke proudly. Changqing, Your Highness, do you regret it now? But, he changed the subject. Without giving Gu Changqing a chance to speak, he continued, it's useless for you to regret now. As he spoke, his expression became more and more ferocious and cruel. Ninth sister can be pardoned, and those idiots who followed her can also be pardoned. But your Gu family, from the moment you killed the envoy I sent, the end has been doomed. I will kill your Gu family, clan. Listening to the murderous words of the third prince, the ninth princess, who was relieved when she heard that the third prince could pardon her subordinates, changed color in an instant, and subconsciously stood up to stop the third prince. But before she could make any move, boom! The royal god behind the third prince snorted coldly, suddenly. The pressure like a mountain pressed down on the heads of the ninth princess and her group, and they were dreaming of moving a finger. It was me who harmed your Gu family. The ninth princess smiled bitterly. If she had known this, she probably shouldn't have won over the Gu family, otherwise she wouldn't have harmed them. As an incompetent master, the only thing she could do was to die to atone for her sins after the Gu family was destroyed. Just when the ninth princess was in despair, Gu Changqing smiled. Clan execution. Regret. He ignored the third prince, but looked at the desperate ninth princess and smiled faintly. Your Highness the ninth princess. It's too early to admit defeat now. With me here, you can't lose. After that, Gu Changqing's eyes fell on the third prince, raised his hand slightly, and stretched out a finger. The third prince, right? Your chess moves are indeed worthy of praise. You have won over the Tantai family, secretly colluded with the various sects under the princess's command to betray, and then revealed your cards today, breaking through the psychological defenses of the remaining people under the princess's command. Every step is good, but unfortunately, you made a wrong move a long time ago. The third prince looked at Gu Changqing, but he was not angry. He just felt that the man in front of him was like a clown. His smile was extremely playful. You don't want to say that I made a wrong move. Is to force your Gu family away? Yes. Gu Changqing nodded slightly. Ha! Is this Gu family member crazy? Just a clown. Behind the third prince, the cultivators, especially the traitor like Yuntian Patriarch, heard Gu Changqing's words, and they all laughed, and their tone was extremely sarcastic. And in the midst of the laughter, Gu Changqing just raised his hand calmly, looked at the third prince, and the people behind him. Yuntian Patriarch, who laughed the most happily, also smiled immediately. Boom! Under the sea of clouds, under the horrified gazes of the imperial city monks, and under the astonished gazes of the ninth princess, Gu Changqing's palm was full of spiritual power, and a 1,000-foot spiritual handprint fell with a bang. Carrying a powerful momentum, in just a moment, it penetrated the formation of thousands of people behind the third prince. When the spiritual palm print dissipated, everyone saw that the previously magnificent formation of thousands of people behind the third prince was reduced by a full third after Gu Changqing's palm fell. One palm to kill 3,000 powerful people. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gu Changqing. Their pupils were trembling slightly, as if they were looking at a sure demon god. You know, the 3,000 dead masters were not just king-level masters. There were many emperors among them. And there were more than one emperor who was only half a step away from the emperor. But even these masters couldn't resist Gu Changqing's palm, and were all wiped out by his palm print. Even the ninth princess's brain was blank and stopped thinking. This scene was too shocking. Even in her dreams, she could hardly imagine such a scene. Gu Changqing just looked at the third prince calmly, took back his palm lightly, and said softly, "Is this the strength of more than 100 sects that you said could destroy me and my Gu family? It doesn't look that good." As he said that, Gu Changqing directly bypassed the pale and trembling third prince and looked at the monks from various sects behind him who had laughed at him before. These people were all pale with fear at this moment, and they dared not breathe, feeling Gu Changqing's eyes falling on them. Their bodies couldn't help trembling. Looking at their miserable appearance, Gu Changqing smiled coldly. You too. Weren't you all laughing happily just now? Why don't you laugh now? Listening to Gu Changqing's word, they couldn't help but want to squeeze out a smile. But how could they laugh? So many powerful people. More than 3 dozen king and emperor realm masters. But in front of Gu Changqing, he easily suppressed and destroyed them with one palm. Who dares to laugh at this strength? Who is qualified to laugh? I am afraid that even the giants in the Saint Emperor realm are only so powerful. They were shocked. Gu Changqing's tone turned cold. I asked you to laugh. Didn't you hear it? No. Your Highness Changqing, don't be angry. We laugh. Hearing the chill in Gu Changqing's words, these people came back to their senses immediately, and each of them tried their best to force out a smile. Especially the leaders of the forces standing in the front row. They originally jumped from the 9 princesses' command, and in order to perform in front of the third prince, they laughed the loudest. At this moment, the regret in their hearts reached the extreme, and they forced out a smile. But that smile was really uglier than crying. Gu Changqing couldn't help but take action again. Boom! A palm fell. Those traitors, along with their clansmen and disciple, were directly annihilated into ashes under Gu Changqing's palm, leaving everyone present completely stunned. Didn't you make us laugh? Your smile is too ugly, Gu Changqing said lightly, and walked toward the third prince in the extremely frightened eyes of the crowd, who were neither crying nor laughing. The third prince was almost scared silly by the strength shown by Gu Changqing at this time, and the bottom of the box worshipper beside him, a giant god emperor with similar strength to Thunder God Emperor, also had an extremely solemn expression. One move flattened thousands of kings and hundreds of emperors, including several perfect existences in the heavenly emperor realm. Such strength is no longer a figure that a god emperor like him can contend with. Such strength. I am afraid that among the giants of the first level of perfect god emperor, it is the most terrifying one. The heart of this royal worshipper was also trembling. He could never have imagined that the Gu family, which had always kept a low profile, would produce a figure like Gu Changqing at this time and actually turn the balance of the battlefield by his own strength? Your Highness the Third Prince, didn't you ask me before whether I regretted it or not? You should know my answer now. Now it's my turn to ask you, do you regret abandoning my Gu family on that day? The Third Prince's mind was blank at this moment. Looking at Gu Changqing in front of him, his body trembled. His lips moved, and he wanted to speak, but he couldn't say a word. As for a regret or not, of course I regret it. I regretted it so much. If he knew that there was a figure like Gu Changqing in the Gu family, how could he abandon the Gu family at the beginning? Thinking of what Gu Changqing said before, he had made all the right moves, but he was one step behind in dealing with the Gu family. At that time, the Third Prince just thought it was ridiculous. But now, it has come true. If she takes a wrong step, she will fall into the abyss, and there will be no return. As for the Third Prince, how desperate he is at this moment. The Ninth Princess is as surprised as she is. She originally thought that she had completely fallen into despair, but he never expected that Gu Changqing would be just as he said. With his own strength, he reversed the balance of the battle, making the Ninth Princess and those strong men who were still on the Ninth Princess's side extremely happy. Sure enough, my feeling was right. This Gu Changqing is really not to be provoked. Ancestor. Oh, Ancestor, you should listen to me. Behind the Third Prince, those powerful forces who followed him were also filled with boundless fear at this moment, and were deeply frightened by Gu Changqing's strength, especially Ye Yin of Yuntian sect. He had long felt that Gu Changqing was an extremely dangerous person. However, whether it was his fellow disciples of Yuntian sect or his master, the ancestor of Yuntian sect, they did not take his words to heart at all. However, they also paid a price. Most of the disciples of Yuntian sect were killed or injured. The ancestor of the Yuntian sect died on the spot under Gu Changqing's palm strike and turned into ashes. All his cultivation was gone. The three younger generations of the Tantai family, such as Jianzhu, were all pale and shocked by Gu Changqing's strength. After a short moment of daze, Jianzhu and Tantai crushed the communication, jade talisman in their hands without hesitation. Variable. Big variable. The strength of this Gu Changqing is too outrageous. We must ask the ancestor to come out of retreat. Tantaiju's heart trembled, but thinking of the ancestor's strength, he also regained some composure. As the communication jade talisman was crushed, Xiao Zhou's message. In the ancestral land of the Tantai family, the Tantai ancestor raised his eyes slightly, and a strange color appeared in his eyes. In his opinion, after the name of the Tantai family was revealed, the 9 princesses should surrender. But now it seems that there are still variables, forcing his descendants to crush the jade talisman to send a message. The spiritual vein of the Shenming dynasty is related to my great plan, and it cannot be lost. Tantai Patriarch whispered softly. He looked into his storage bag, where an extremely simple black ring was glowing with a faint fluorescence, which made Tantai Patriarch eager. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and tore the space. In an instant, he crossed thousands of miles and appeared above the Shenming Imperial City. The space crack suddenly opened, accompanied by the sound of click. In an instant, it also attracted the attention of the whole audience. What kind of existence is coming? It actually tore the space directly and crossed the void with its physical body. The cultivators suddenly changed color and looked at the crack that suddenly appeared in the air. With horror in their eyes, even the 2 God Emperors present all change color, and fear rose in their hearts. Ordinary God Emperors can tear space, but it is impossible to cross the void. Only those Saint Emperors, who are more terrifying than God Emperors, can achieve this. Under the awe-inspiring gaze of the crowd, in the crack, an old man in hemp clothes stepped out. At the moment of his appearance, the third prince and even the monks behind him who were frightened by Gu Changqing showed boundless ecstasy on their faces after surviving a disaster. Is that Patriarch Tantai? Patriarch Tantai has entered the realm of Saint Emperor.